All right, welcome to the May 10th, 2022 Development Review Commission hearing. The Development Review Commission is created to hold public meetings and hearings to provide analysis and recommendations to the City Council regarding general land use policies and applications, where the Commission has recommendatory power, and to render final decisions on specified applications where the Commission has final decision-making power, including but not limited to all aspects of a proposed and future development. The Development Review Commission recognizes that the creation of desirable environments throughout the city for residents, businesses, and industry is a prime requisite for the interdependence of land values, aesthetics, and good site planning by promoting harmonious, safe, attractive, and compatible development that is therefore considered to be in the best interests of public health, safety, and the general welfare. Appeals of the Development Review Commission's decisions. Any person aggrieved by a final decision of the Development Review Commission may file an appeal to the City Council within 14 calendar days after the Development Review Commission has rendered its decision. So that would be 14 days after tonight. Development Review Commission recommendations to the City Council are not final decisions. They go to the City Council and are heard there. Tonight, we have regular commission members, Michelle Schwartz, Don Casano, Vice Chair Steve Bauer. I'm Chairman Mike DiDomenico, Commissioner Scott Sumners, Phil Amorosi, and Barbara Lloyd attending. Also joining us from staff, Ryan Levesque, Steve Abrahamson, Saparna Dasgupta, Diana Kaminsky, Lee Jimenez, Karen Stovall, Ty Templeton, Joanna Berry, and running the boards for Channel 11, Jason Wolf, and Eddie join us tonight. Welcome. This evening, we have 7 items, I believe, on our agenda. It is our intention to vote on several of them as part of our consent agenda. So those items that are being proposed to the consent agenda are items 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it's the intention of the commission to take one single vote to approve all 4 of those cases with one vote. If you are here and you wish to be heard on one of those cases, flag me down now and we can pull those items from the consent agenda. Case number 7, we will be hearing. That's the Ramada Inn rezoning. So if you're here for that case, don't worry. We're actually gonna have a presentation and hear that case. Anybody here from the public wishing to be heard or have questions specific to items 3, 4, 5, and 6? Okay, seeing none, we will leave those items on our consent agenda. First item for consideration is consideration of the meeting minutes for both the study session and the regular meeting for April 12, 2022. We went over those in our study session, had no changes to those minutes as drafted. I'd entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Casano. I would make a motion for approval of the Development Review Commission study session 4/12/2022 minutes and the Development Review Commission regular meeting of 4/12/2022.
Do we have a second?
Second, Commissioner Amorosi.
It's been moved and seconded. I will do a roll call. I'll let you know right now we had 3 commissioners that were not in attendance at that meeting who will be abstaining. That is Commissioners Sumners, Casano, and Lloyd. So all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, motion to approve passes 4-0. That brings us to our consent agenda, items 3, 4, 5, and 6. Do I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Sumners, motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Sumners and seconded by Commissioner Lloyd. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Wow, we're on our way to a record. This brings us to our last item on the agenda, and that is item number 7. Item number 7 is the request for a general plan projected residential density map amendment from medium to high density, and to high density, and a zoning map amendment from R4 multifamily general district to MU4 mixed use high density. This is for the Ramada Inn property located at 1635 North Scottsdale Road. Applicant is the city of Tempe. One thing, just to be clear, if you're here from the public, there is no design or specific development being heard tonight. There is nothing being presented other than the density change and the use change here. Applicant is the city of Tempe.
Hello again, Maria Lochner, back. Economic Development. Suparna, can you please go to the next? Oh, are you doing it this time? Okay, thank you. So I am doing this presentation with Lee Jimenez from our planning division, and I think he's online. So sorry, I ran down here because I was gonna take a call, but you guys are fast. Okay. So the city has initiated this upzoning process for a multitude of reasons, which I'll get into in just a second, but I wanted to give you the timeline first. And that is that in January, the city approved a resolution to upzone certain properties that they felt had good redevelopment opportunities. The goal of it was for the city to initiate the rezoning and general plan amendment on behalf of a property owner, even though there was no project in sight. And I'll get to the reason why in the next slide, but we're doing this on a pilot process kind of basis. It's only available for 1 year, and then the council wants to evaluate whether or not this resolution works, and if they want to go forward and potentially look at other properties. And also, we wanted to be sure that no historic or historic eligible properties could be used in this process. All right, next slide. So what's the rationale? So the mayor has been receiving a lot of complaints over the last, well, since he started office for sure, a couple years. You know, everything has changed a lot since the pandemic, and we've been having various issues in various parts of town. So one of the areas of town where he received complaints from neighborhoods was in North Tempe, specifically around Scottsdale Road, north of the 202. So he has met with a lot of neighborhoods, and so has other deputy city managers. I know economic development has, housing has, human services has. In fact, in March 1st, we opened up a police substation and Care 7 station up at the Apache Center, just on the west side of the road on Scottsdale Road, as in an attempt to try to address some of the concerns and show that we had more skin in the game by trying to be more present. Additionally, the mayor launched his Hometown for All initiative with the goal of trying to build more affordable and workforce housing in the city. And there are lots of areas of the city that are ripe for redevelopment, some more than others. So part of the idea was, how do we help some areas that we know would be good candidates for redevelopment and try to get to the mayor's goal here of redeveloping, creating more housing opportunities, reducing some of the neighborhood complaints and the service calls that we know are existing in certain areas. So when we looked at it, the first ones that came up were on Scottsdale Road. Now there are various properties there that we looked at. The Ramada Inn and the ownership of the Ramada Inn were interested in doing this. So that's why we started with them. A lot of people ask, why the Ramada Inn? Why not the Motel 6? Why not other properties? Well, the reason is that ownership approached us and said, we would like to do this. So obviously the city, it's private property. We can't initiate it on our own. Since they have agreed to do this, we are taking it through the process for them. Okay, any questions on that before we continue to the planning stuff? Because then I think Lee's gonna go right into it.
Can you give us the status of ownership of the property currently today as it stands?
It is, it's owned by Mr. Pham and his family. And they've owned it
It's
for,
currently operating as, operating Ramada Inn right now?
it is not operating as a Ramada Inn, correct?
No.
Operate at that independent hotel.
Okay, but it is,
As an, yeah, as an
there are
independent
guests in
hotel.
and out, it's a hotel as it stands. City doesn't own it.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It's privately owned.
Perfect, gotcha.
Yes. And Mr. Pham has done a lot. I mean, a lot of these neighborhood meetings involved with the Ramada Inn, and then, of course, some of the other properties. And Mr. Pham has done a lot of work to mitigate some of the issues related to the service calls. He's brought in security to help cut down on some of the criminal complaints that we were getting. And it has been noticeable. I just want to make sure that he has done a lot in that. And that's why he's here tonight, too, to help, with this process.
Another question? Commissioner Amorosi.
Thank you, Chairman DiDomenico. Ms. Loeffner. So according to the map, you want to bring it up to high density, which is up to 65 units an acre. But you're asking for MU4 designation, which my understanding is unlimited density. And why not MU3, which says there's a limit?
So we worked on this with planning. It just seemed like it made sense. A lot of the projects that we're seeing are coming in as MU4. Plus, it's on the arterial there. Scottsdale Road, as you know, sees a great deal of traffic. That's a great gateway for us. It just seemed to make sense that if you are going to put something that has density, it would be on an arterial such as that.
So you're going to somehow limit it, though, to up to 65 units, even with the MU4 designation?
That was our intention. And I think Lee can talk more about it
Talk about
when
that?
he talks about the planning, but that was the intention, yes.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, so you mentioned it's a one-year pilot program.
Mm-hmm.
Is this one of many you have coming down for this year, or is this the only project that you anticipate bringing forward at this time?
Well, it's the only one we have right now. We would like to bring more. We do not have another one in the hopper at this moment. I mean, this one, it got passed in January. We submitted the application in February, and now we're going through the process.
Thanks.
Good. Other questions? Thank you very much.
All right.
Sit
So
tight.
Lee is next. So there's more.
Yes.
More to come.
Hello, good evening, Commission Chair DiDomenico, Vice Chair, and the rest of the Commission. My name is Lee Jimenez, and I'm a Senior Planner with the Community Development Department. Please excuse my voice. I'm a little under the weather, so I'll try to do my best to maintain a clear voice. So I'm just going to go over the facts of the case. I was tasked in processing or fostering the request through the public hearing process. Can we have the slides on the screen, please?
Eddie, it's not on Cisco somehow.
Yeah, I just need to see the slides. If not, I can go blind and I'll give it a try.
Did it?
Still not seeing. It's okay. I can.
No.
I'll just begin, and then I'm gonna go off of memory of the slides from what I've seen. Or actually, I have a copy of it here, so hopefully I can. Oh, there it is. I can see
There
it now.
it is now, Lee.
Okay, thank you. All right, so so this process does require a neighborhood meeting, and just to be clear, it will go through not just this public hearing process, but eventually, should the resolution and ordinance be approved and adopted, uh, the project would still be required to go through another public process for public hearings and neighborhood meetings for the project itself, which is the design and then to process the planned area development, which will be used to establish development standards on the site as well as the density. So should this go through and be approved ultimately, there is no density. The density would be kind of in limbo until it's developed. Um, but I'll touch on that later. I'm just gonna go over the neighborhood meeting, which was held on April 6th. About 20 residents attended. The meeting was held virtually via Zoom meetings. Um, and then through the neighborhood meeting process and also through the public hearing process, when we advertised the request, we received 24 comments. And the breakdown is we have 12 comments in support of the project. Most are saying that this could spark a positive change in the area. Then we have some who are conditionally in support of the project. They just don't like the fact that the density on paper is seems high, um, but the density will be subject to the site conditions and the site layout and what the development can provide as far as functionality and then any other requirements um, that a traffic study would indicate as far as what's needed and necessary to help mitigate any potential traffic issues in the area. And then we did receive, and this is I have to update this, one more opposed to the request, and that was the warm opposite or the lukewarm opposition from um, the Indian Bend neighborhood. Regarding, just stating concerns about the sites. And that comment, that email will be added to the record and be included in the city council staff report once that goes to council. Next slide, please. So the general area of the site, it's the southeast corner of Lilac and North Scottsdale Road. And it consists of two parcels. It's the larger parcel, which you see right away. And then there's a small sliver at the very southeast corner. And so that's why in the background, I indicated that there are two parcels that are part of this request. And should the adoption of the ordinance and the resolution go through, um, those would become MU4, both parcels. Next slide, please. And here's just a close-up view of the site, of the hotel site. Next slide, please. And here's some photos of existing conditions. And next slide, please. Here's another photo looking southeast. Next slide, please. And then I believe this is looking south from the very east end. Next slide, please. And so on your left-hand side, we have the existing projected density per the City of Tempe General Plan 2040. As you can see, the site is currently has a density category of medium to high density, up to 25 dwelling units per acre. And then the proposal is to increase that or up that category to the high density category. And just to be clear, the high density category is up to 65 dwelling units per acre. It's the high density urban core category where you can exceed 65 dwelling units per acre plus. So I just want to state that for the record. Next slide, please. And then here we have our existing zoning on your left-hand side. It's zoned R4, multifamily. And then based on the proposed request for the zoning, it would be changed to mixed use, which is in line with the general plan, which has this area here with a projected land use of mixed use. Um, Next slide, please. So throughout the neighborhood meeting process and the public hearing process, we've had questions about, well, what could a potential development look like with this density? And it's all really unknown at this time, but we do have examples that we could probably share that could shed some light on what could possibly happen there. But without a design review application and the full details, um, it's difficult to guess what could be there. But on your left-hand side, we have Tempe Market Station, which is currently under construction. This is a new development that's south of the Tempe Marketplace off of Rio Salado and I believe Smith Road. Um, and these, and then the other example is under construction as well, and that's Banyan Tempe North, which is located on the former county island north of the 202, and it's between, I guess you could say, west of Miller. And these projects had densities in the range of 45 to 65 dwelling units per acre. And a lot of questions have been coming in about, well, what's expected here and what could be built. It's hard to determine what the final density would be as far as how many units can be constructed, along with any mixed use components as well. Um, but it's all subject to site constraints, location, any traffic mitigation issues, or access prevention. You know, if the neighborhood doesn't want any local traffic, maybe. So all of that will be reviewed and evaluated when a development is proposed. And next slide, please. And so here's a slide that just kind of shows the questions that we received during the neighborhood meeting, like what's the max number of units that can be built? What does that translate into building height? And how does traffic and circulate into the zoning? And what's the city's outreach, public input? So I think I've covered all these. Same with height, massing, all that is unknown at this time until we actually see a proposed development, and then where we can assure that the site will um, function well and help mitigate any potential impacts to the surrounding area. And as far as the city's outreach is concerned, this would be one of them. And then like I said earlier, if should a development be proposed in the future, then that project would also be required to go through the public hearing process, which would be requiring a neighborhood meeting, a recommendation hearing from the DRC, as well as the first introductory hearing at City Council, and the second and final where a decision made by council. Next slide, please. And so, I mean, some of the answers we've given as far as what occur at the site, or I'm sorry, we're going to be asking these questions, and we hope to receive feedback throughout this process as well as the future process. If should there be a development proposed at the site, like what kind of retail would you like? What are your concerns? What about the landscaping and buffering from adjacent uses? All those questions will all be evaluated and considered as we go through this public hearing process as well as in the future. Next slide, please. And so the next steps, we'll receive a recommendation tonight, and then the first city council introduction hearing for this item is May 26th, and then the second and final hearing is scheduled for June 9th. Next slide, please. And that concludes my portion of the presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Commissioners. Commissioner Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair DiDomenico. Lee, if we could go back to the slide that shows the density shades there, that's the zoning, and there's yeah, okay. Whoop, yep, that one. So currently the site is the orange color, the up to 25 DU per acre, and we're talking about approving up to 65 DU per acre. Based upon the size, that's about 204, potentially up to 204 units on the site. Can you talk through the reasoning of why we skip over high density limited, which is the up to 45 DU per acre, which would be about up to 141 units, just in terms of setting expectations? Like, what was the thought process on that?
Yes, Commissioner. So planning is involved in processing the request. I wasn't involved early on as far as direction of the zoning designation and the general plan density designation proposals. So I don't have the answer to that. I don't know if that was in discussion early on in the process with the whole initiative, but I'm hopeful maybe um, economic development can speak to that.
and I'm not sure if Maria would like to, but my feeling on that is maybe just in terms of scaling with the neighborhood, instead of skipping over, going from kind of a lower density to one of the higher densities that we have in town, maybe considering one of the more moderate ones.
So we chose the 65 because we were working with the property owner, and we knew that that made sense in that area. It doesn't have to be 65, but it made sense because of the arterial and location close to the 202 and everything. So that's why we went for 65.
Some of the additional questions that were asked of from the community was looking at, well, what's being developed in the area. So the two most recent projects was Banyan North Tempe, and they're around 45 to 50 dwellings per acre. The Camden Hayden project, that was slightly higher density designation, and they received the up to 65 density category. Since that time, we haven't received any additional multifamily in the area, so those are the two most relevant projects that we have reference to into what type of densities we've been seeing north of the 202.
Okay, thank you.
And neither of them are on arterials.
That's correct.
Commissioner Sumners.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lee, can you just help us out? Density is really important, but height is what people perceive right from the street. Can you just remind us what the max height is for what we can do now versus what is being proposed?
I can look that up.
Okay.
So for the MU4 zoning, should that be adopted, the maximum height would be established through the PAD process or the planned area development process. And then as far as the R4 standards are concerned, the maximum height is, stand by while I pull up our Muni code.
Apologies, Lee, I tried to do that here, but
It's no
I don't have the
problem.
right
So
sign in.
R4 maximum height is 40 feet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And what some of the questions we asked or provided some of the community members is, and this is an estimate, it could be anywhere from a 4-story to potentially a 5-story project height. We typically probably wouldn't see a 3-story development. Very few projects these days we've seen coming in at 3 stories. That's more of a Mark Taylor version property site where you have like up to 25 dwellings per acre. So likely might be a project that might yield 4 to 5 stories.
Okay, but from what I understand in the answer, regardless, it's going to go through some kind of a review process through a PAD and through the DPR as well, right?
Yeah, that was the reason the planned area development overlay was withheld from the process, because there is no project to reference. There's no standards to establish until we've seen that proposed project. And so basically, we're going through this exercise for the potential of redevelopment of the site. There's no guarantee the site will get redeveloped, but there's this is the potential, the opportunity to get redeveloped. And then once there's a developer on board in association with the property ownership, then they can move forward with the project and go through basically this very same process again, getting public input, neighborhood meeting, and through the public hearing process to adopt standards for a development project.
That's great. Thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Amorosi.
Thank you, Chairman. No, Lee or Ryan. So normally we see the development and the rezoning at the same time. And now you're asking us to approve a rezoning without any vision going along with it, and keep our fingers crossed that it's going to be something that the neighborhood that's right behind it is going to accept, without the developers saying, well, that's the zoning they gave us.
Yeah, it's a little unusual. This is our first time doing this process. We've never had an upzoning that we didn't initiate without property owners or development opportunity. The general plan is our guiding document for what we foresee in the area currently right now. Since 2014, we had a projected density of up to 25. We're recognizing, though, that we're not seeing projects come in at up to 25 dwellings per acre anymore. A lot of redevelopment is happening in the higher thresholds. So this was an opportunity to look at, okay, if there are concerns with the conditions of the property, if the neighbors or the community wants to see the development, the site redevelop, and maybe some community members do not want to see this. But this type of zoning district would yield the potential for a redevelopment. Maybe it's up to 65, maybe the most appropriate density is up to 45, but we're looking to get that input through this process.
And Ryan, if I could just add, add along to the whole conversation about the density category and what kind of gets built on the ground. So for example, Camden Hayden 2, that's the development that's currently under construction or probably nearly complete on, I believe it's College and Weber.
Curry.
Or is it Curry? I'm sorry, Curry. And so that site, like Ryan had said, it had received it obtained the resolution to go up to the density category that's being proposed tonight for this site. But at the end of it all, they only provided a density of 36 dwelling units per acre. So that kind of shows you that site conditions, layout, all play a factor in how many ultimate units can be provided there. But with not knowing what's going in and what's designed at this time, it's hard to determine what could be. But I did also want to add that we did include a condition in the staff report, a recommended condition, and basically it says if an application for a PAD and DPR is made to the Community Development Department within 2 years of the date of approval, if this condition is not met, the zoning may revert to that in place at the time of application, or the applicant may request for an extension pursuant to the reversion process.
So in a typical case, we usually have a 2-year time period to file for a building permit. In this case, since we don't have a complete project, we're using that same time frame as a result to initiate an actual development plan review application.
Just the application.
Correct, yeah. Then
Within
they'd
2
have to go
years.
through the process, and typically it's a 6 to 9 month process.
Okay. Other questions before I call to the public? Yes, Commissioner Schwartz.
And so with the MU4, there's no issues with the hotel use within MU4? Is that correct?
Currently, right now, the operation of the hotel operates as a legal nonconforming use site already because of the R4 zoning designation. So today, they could develop the site today as R4, multifamily up to 25 dwellings per acre. But as the original entitlement for the site at that time allowed a hotel with a use permit, so they're allowed to maintain that current use designation. If there is substantial change or desire to revert or change the occupancy or redevelop the site, then they would have to come in conformance to the current zoning district, which would trigger the PAD.
Thank you.
Or otherwise, a rezoning of another more appropriate district.
Good question. Yes, Commissioner Lloyd.
All right, one last clarification. So if we play this out and let's just say that we approved 45 DU per acre, and within the next couple of years, someone comes back and wants to take it through the design review process, and they would like to propose 60 DU per acre. At that point in time, they're going to ask for another amendment to this zoning for the basically upzoning then to a higher density potentially. I'm just trying to think through managing expectations. If we set 65 DU per acre today, that's what they'll come asking for, and maybe that's not the most appropriate thing, but if they design it right and bring it back, then maybe it can be changed. Is that how the process would potentially play out if it got denser than what we approved tonight?
Correct, yeah, if they wanted to seek a higher density from that, they would have to seek a general plan amendment to increase that maximum density threshold of greater than 45, if that was the case, yes.
Okay, thanks.
And that's a fairly time-consuming process to do a second general plan amendment. To
Well,
take
it
the
would
next step.
be basically this same process we're talking about that we're doing today, or the PAD process. It would just be a second component of their application justifying why this density designation. So the project itself wouldn't change. It would just be a little more work on providing justification and analysis as to what are they implementing in the general plan that would justify having this density category.
Got it. Thank you. All right, at this time, I have one card from Ms. Justice who wishes to be heard on this matter, and I see a second one coming. All right. Elaine, I have yours too. So there is, that's got, unless there's somebody hiding behind the seats, that's everybody. Darlene, if you could just state your name and city of residence.
My name is Darlene Justice, and I've lived in Tempe for 56 years. I've also been with the North Tempe Neighborhood Association for 21 years. Some time ago, many years ago, we were sort of called the stepchild of Tempe. We lived across the river. We even had trouble getting fire department to come across when there were ASU games or different events. One of the first things that helped us was a fire station that was built in North Tempe. We worked for over 10 years to get a multi-generational center in North Tempe next to Laird School. We have 4 Head Start classes there. Took us many years to get Tempe Papago Park preserved. We had issues with the Papago Park where builders wanted to come in and build high-end housing with gated entrances and that. We worked over 50 years. Many of us helped clean up and call the county about the county island that is from Scottsdale Road to Miller, from Curry to the 202. It's been a blighted crime area. There's some very good businesses in there, but there's been a lot of really big issues. Maricopa County doesn't even do proactive things in there, it's only reactive. Scottsdale Road has been going through degradation in North Tempe over the years. We've had problems, especially the pandemic, I think, helped emphasize it. A lot of activities went inside buildings, and we've had real problems with calls for service, first at the Ramada and the Motel 6. Ramada has taken steps to help with that, but there are still serious issues. We have they've had to remove bus benches from the bus stops. Quick Trip has a real problem with panhandling, approaching people aggressively. There's jaywalking between Motel 6 and QT. All used to be over to the Ramada. Scott, we have a lot of affordable housing in North Tempe. We have Concord Village, where there's over 300 homes. A large part of them are HUD financed, HUD assisted. We have lots of duplexes and quadplexes. We have from high end to low end to affordable in North Tempe. We've had a lot of things change in North Tempe. Our housing is good if you go into our neighborhoods and that, but Scottsdale Road is a real problem. We've had good businesses leave the area, and we have some serious, serious problems. This upzoning that the city is doing is a big help. This is think of it as revitalization, because if you go a little bit further north on Scottsdale Road, Scottsdale City is building a lot of housing, a lot of big, tall housing. They've done it all along McDowell Road. But when you come to Tempe, when you come into the entrance of Tempe up Scottsdale Road, things change. And the better businesses in that are going more north. We need things in North Tempe. And this is an opportunity to help revitalize this area. I'm so proud of Tempe and leadership. I know this is something new, but in 1 year, they'll decide if they're going to keep it or not. This is a test. It's a test with the neighborhoods. It's a test with the owner. It's a test with Tempe. I think it's going to be very beneficial. There are other places in Tempe that have serious problems in old, aging areas. And so I hope that you look at this as a revitalization possibility. I've been here a long time. I've seen a lot of things. And if they build this with more units, they can make it so there's no right turn out onto Lilac. All these things can be discussed when another project comes along. I guarantee you there will be a lot of neighborhood input actually into the actual building and what they're going to do. If this does not go up to 65 units, it's probably not lucrative enough But why should be downplaying this when you go north on Scottsdale Road and they have all these other opportunities for housing? We need housing. This is an arterial street. I will tell you, the city of Tempe recommended against Quick Trip years ago because it wasn't on a corner and because it was a super pumper station. And oh my God, you have all these pumps, and how are they going to fill them up? We came to a meeting and we opposed their wanting to deny it, and we got Quick Trip. We had to fight to get a light at Quick Trip. It was a bad accident. Now we have a real serious problem with all of the jaywalking and all of the issues there. And I know that this type of thing will really help us. And I trust this mayor and council. I trust you guys. It'll come back to you. It's going to come back to us, whatever's proposed. And if it's bad, it can be stopped. And so I highly recommend it. And I really appreciate your help with this.
Well, thank you for coming and participating. Questions from the commission? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Lane Caraway.
Hi, my name is Lane Caraway. I am the chair for Cavalier Hills Neighborhood Association, which is directly across the Ramada Inn. I would bet none of you up here are aware of what's been going on over the years. In the last 2 years, not only has Mayor Woods, Rosa, and a handful of other city staff been working with our communities to try to fix what we have up there. We have what's called a vicious triangle. We have apartments behind my home, Santa Fe Court Apartments. We have the Motel 6, and we have the Ramada Inn. It's a trifecta effect. It's been destroying our community up there for years. The city has pumped thousands and thousands of dollars in resources, getting the substation, trying to clean up the Motel 6, trying to clean up Santa Fe. The amount of drugs going through, the amount of homeless. On my house alone, at one time, you could see over 100 homeless go by my house, tweaked out of their mind because of these 3 businesses. We have a chance to start cleaning up this area, our community. My neighborhood has overwhelmingly, I have not had one person I've spoken to, and I've been working, because Mayor Woods came to us back in October or last year with a proposal to do this. Everybody in my neighborhood wants this to happen. We want to see change. When you talk about density, the Hampton Inn is just south of that. It's a 4-story building. So if it's a 4-story, it's not going to be any different. You have 140 units at that place. I have been over there at the Ramada where there are tweakers passed out in their own feces and vomit. That's just the environment that you have over there. It's now run as a halfway for drug addicts and their families. There's probably 300 people living there with kids. Okay, is that the true answer, what we want for our community? No. We want to see change. We want to have restaurants. We need businesses up there. We're not going to get there unless we start building our density up a little. There's going to be a light put in at Lilac. I don't know if you guys are aware. So that's going to, any concerns with traffic studies and all that in advance, that light's already in there, right in front of the Ramada Inn. The amount of jaywalking, as Darlene says, the city is putting up a fence in the medium that they keep tearing down, the tweakers going between Ramada and Motel 6. That's costing city resources just to maintain that. When we can sit there, we have a chance now to get rid of one of our problem childs up there. We need to get this done, get some new development, new apartments, condos, I don't care. What we have now, excuse my French, is a shithole, and it needs to go. And then the city can focus on Motel 6, knock it out, and then get with the apartments, knock those out, and from there, we can have a decent community up there. We all work trying to keep our community up. We've had 4 meetings in my community alone where every time Mayor Woods has attended, Rosa has attended, Andre from Assistant Police Chief, and so forth. Donna Kennedy, everybody has been trying to work on trying to clean up this neighborhood. We need your support and get this approved so we can go to council and get it going. And
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Questions, Commission? Ms. Caraway, thank you very much for your participation as always. Any other members of the public wish to be heard? Seeing none?
Chairman,
Yes?
I am just being informed that another person wanted to speak and she could make it to the meeting, but she is online. If we can hear her also.
If we have that technical ability,
Yes, we do.
okay.
Christy Arnold.
I unmuted. This is Christy Arnold. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, this is great. Hey, thank you for Maria, Lee, everyone who has gotten me here. I submitted a letter to you guys at a bit of the last minute. Lee gave you was kind enough to give you sort of a synopsis. I approached it from a completely different angle. I live in the neighborhood that we're talking about here. If you read my email in its entirety, I just want to clear up a lot of myth and confusion on the Ramada itself. It's being pointed to as a drug infested. I believe I can't repeat what Lane referred to it as. The truth is, I've confirmed this. It's currently being used by Newfound Hope Wellness and Detox Center. You can check all that out. I spoke with someone, I discovered this in January. I spoke with someone living there and attending the program. I spoke with the initial staff there. Dennis Artilis did not return my phone calls. I've spoken through Danny Pham's attorney. I've tried to get everyone on board with this. Since January, sorry to be long-winded, since January, we're living the dream. Newfound Hope is their current residence. It is not a public Ramada right now. It, according to Ramada reservations, it is closed as a Ramada, but in compliance with Tempe, it is being rented within the 30-day stay, or I believe everything is compliant to rent exclusively for the overnight stay portion. It was said, it's true, this is not being used as a detox center, it's being used by a detox center. These are facts from Danny Pham's attorney and representatives from Newfound Hope. So that's an irony we can embrace. There's people getting help for addiction. The main thing that has happened, and I can tell you because I got thrown off the property trying to cut across it in January, and another neighbor can attest to this. They have 24/7 multiple security guards on that site. No one has stepped foot on that site. I walk my dog late, they're out in the back, sitting in cars. It is secured. There is no traffic, there's no drug use other than what they're trying to correct in the program. There is no traffic now from QT through that property into our neighborhood, and I can testify that by the no styrofoam QT cups blowing down our sidewalks. So it has made a huge impact. As I said in my email, right now, Danny Pham, the clinic, its participants, the building, the city of Tempe for revenue, our neighbors, our neighborhood are all benefiting from the current state. I was a bit dismissed giving this information at the April 6th meeting. So please look into that, the current state of what it is. What I'd like to do is address the sort of cart before the horse implementation of this new idea that was confirmed by the council. that usually a developer would come through. So again, I wish I had my email in front of me to stick to script, but let's say, for instance, it does pass at 65 density per acre. It attracts a developer who wants to do that, but then, correct me if I'm wrong, they will have to go through all the pad plannings or whatever. I don't believe at this point a traffic study has been shown or water and sewer flow tests have been done to see if this site can support a 65 density. So I'm not quite understanding that. So if a developer comes in and says, oh, I really wanted to do at least 180 units, well, it's we don't have that information. So that alone is, I want to speak to the integrity of the way Tempe does things, always having done that for a manor, and then now we're suddenly using the Ramada as sort of a test pilot to see if this works. So the Ramada's fine. This is a bit cart and horse, cart before the horse situation. My last point in the email was we have two capable, passionate, informed, involved neighborhoods, Indian Bend and Cavalier Hills, flanking the problem to the east and west. We have a new police hub up 20 feet from that. We've got the Santa Fe apartments around the corner. So why can't, if we can't make a dent in something with that, then someone needs to tell me how rezoning is going to magically save us, how that's going to do that. So in closing, I would like to make members of my neighborhood available. There is an existing problem. The main target that should have been addressed was the Motel 6, but what was ended up was an easy target with a single owner to try to turn this over was the Ramada Inn. Also, there are contradictions. Development wants a site-ready, like ready-to-dig kind of site, but yet Danny Pham was approached. Um, one of staff on development said he's okay if it sells or doesn't sell. How committed? We have a reluctant seller, and he's not. I don't think it's wise for him to do anything while he's got tenants on board. So again, I'll make that email available to anyone, to all of you. Thank you for a last minute opportunity. Forgive my rambling. Thank you for hearing me on behalf of Indian Bend neighborhood.
Thank you very much for calling in. Commissioners, any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? All right, that will conclude our public comments portion. I would ask the applicant if you want to respond to anything that you've heard in the public comments. You don't have to if you.
Jim, do you want me to respond to some of the planning related? So just wanted to respond to a couple of things. When a development is going to be proposed, at the time that development will be proposed, the infrastructure is part of the analysis during the entitlement process. And it's not uncommon in an older neighborhood where upsizing of pipelines for water, sewer, any of those that are part of the development cost. And the city will be evaluating all of those based on the proposal that's made to us and the capacity needed for any of those infrastructure. So I just wanted to make sure that the Ms. Arnold understood that project.
And I appreciate you mentioning that, along with traffic issues and placement of stoplights and restrictions of right turns and how
That's correct.
the project
There
would
will
play
be
with the neighborhood. All those things.
Yeah, for that kind of density, at the time, whatever the density would be, especially because it's on Scottsdale Road, there will be a traffic impact study required for this.
I have a question, I'm going to ask for you to speak on behalf of the property owner. Would it be fair to state that the current owner of the Ramada property is in support of and in favor of this upzoning as it's proposed?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Um, You know, that would be a horrible taking if the city was,
Can you imagine?
was doing something for a property they don't own that's currently owned and occupied. So I just wanted to make sure that we weren't
And
misinterpreting what was happening.
excuse me, Chair DiDomenico, I also wanted to, going back to responding to one of the comments, I just wanted to clarify one thing that, yes, as Ms. Arnold mentioned, and I mentioned also during my presentation, that Mr. Pham has done a great deal of work to clean up the site from the criminal activity by having the security there. But we believe that putting in a neighborhood, a community with a multifamily where you have people living there 24/7 and they grow roots in the community, that will have a better impact on improving the security and the service calls and the crime in the area overall than having more security guards. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Commissioner Amoroso.
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Loeffner, were you aware that the Ramada was being used as a detox center?
I was not.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would probably question whether or not that runs afoul of the use permit in place, the zoning, the current zoning, but that's really not what we're here to discuss today. No, we're not.
Okay.
Commissioner Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair. So I guess the point of the exercise here tonight is to give the owner of the land another, tool in his toolbox to take this out to the market as a potential redevelopment site. Has this site previously been marketed as a redevelopment site without this amendment and not successful? Or what's kind of the background or lead up as to why now do we need to do this versus without it?
It had not been. The reason for why now is that the situation has been getting worse in North Peoria. I'm sorry, North Tempe. As we mentioned during the presentation, there have been greater issues in the area than there had been previously, and the desire to redevelop has come up to the forefront because of that, and because of the mayor's initiatives, especially his Hometown for All initiative. So there's been just more attention placed on redevelopment in general in North Tempe that there had been previously.
Other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. At this point, the presentations, public comments are closed. We're open for discussion amongst the commission or to put a proposal on the table.
Mr. Chairman, Tempe's always been very creative in their development and redevelopment processes to attract developers, and Town Lake is a good example. Apache is a good example. This, to the neighbors and more importantly for the record, to those that are uncomfortable with this process, I understand. It is to some extent putting the cart before the horse, but it is not, the horse is not out of the barn yet, because there will be additional reviews that must take place to set into stone the overall density, traffic flow, infrastructure requirements, building materials, heights, etc. This is simply a tool that developers are looking for projects that are easier to bring to market. This will take care of the general plan amendment, which is a laborious process. This will take care of base zoning, which is not as laborious as a general plan amendment, but It is a long process. The development plan review process is more specific, more detailed, and yet quicker. So I think this will make this property attractive for redevelopment to a greater extent than if it were to remain as it is. Still a redevelopment process, but they'd have to go through all of this, and it would take more time, and albeit it would probably not be quite as attractive to a quality developer. I'm really surprised, and I'm thankfully surprised, that overall the general neighborhood consensus of those that have lived here for years and live here now is positive toward getting this moving. Because I hated to drive up and down the 101. I used to take Roll Road, Scottsdale Road, pretty regularly to and from my office in Scottsdale. And I know exactly what you've been dealing with because I saw it every single morning and every single evening. And I was only driving by. This is something that is creative. It's unusual, but it's not a done deal. It simply puts in place the opportunity for a developer to come in and streamline the process to present his application and get through that process a bit quicker. And I really applaud the city for taking a look at this unusual tool, and I applaud the neighbors for kind of embracing what it can do to assist in redevelopment of a small portion of North Tempe. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Amorosi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When they talked about the triangle, it reminded me of back on Apache about 20 years ago. We had our own Bermuda Triangle of 3 places. They weren't motels, they were bars. And the druggies and the prostitutes used to run from one place to the other across the street. And the neighbors definitely wanted those places targeted first by the city. And so I hear the neighborhood leaders, they probably hear it even more than the police do about how bad it is, so they know. And I'm going to support this because I do want to see change, just like we got change on Apache. And we'll take the risk and see. I think there's enough safeguards in place that we'll get something good out of this, definitely better than what's there now.
Thank you. I also will support this. I applaud our council and mayor for this initiative and trying something new. It's not the first site around town that they've found older motels, properties that were in need of repurposing or redevelopment to attempt to make some dent in our housing crisis that we have. This is not it's an unusual process that we're talking about tonight, but it's not unprecedented. This is really when earlier in study session, we were talking about the 2050 process, 2050 plan. That's what the city does on a grand scale. They find areas that are lower density than the city wants them to be going forward, and to encourage redevelopment of those areas in a direction the city wants, we change the map. We propose different uses and densities, and we do that every 10 years or so. In this case, we're just doing it on a parcel by parcel or project by project basis, and I have no concern that we will scour any proposed development that comes forward to us in the future. I also, experience tells me, although there's this request for up to 65 dwelling units, this site, its size and shape, I would be surprised if they get, if they get to 50 units. I mean, that's still a dense project, and it'll still come in at 4 or 5 stories, but it will look like everything that Scottsdale is developing to the north. If you used to, North Tempe used to look just like South Scottsdale years ago. And then ASU and Skysong came in, and things south of that started to change. And you have strip clubs that right now are surrounded in Old Scottsdale by 4-story apartment complexes that are under construction. It'll happen. If we build it, it will come, I guess. Commissioner Sumners.
Thanks so much. I'll be supporting this as well. There's tremendous opportunity here for private development to come in with private funds. It's all about risk and certainty. And if they weren't sure if there'd be support for increased density and zoning like this, it's a real risk. And thank you two for coming out and speaking with us tonight in favor. So much of what this body hears is opposition. And so it's great to hear some folks in favor, and it's great to hear that. And I think having your testimony in the record will be really helpful. And providing this upzoning will provide that extra economic boost that will make this site very viable for redevelopment. So happy to support it. Thanks.
Other comments or a motion? Commissioner Lloyd.
I'm just going to say one more thing for the record in terms of I will also support it, and I do thank you for the neighborhood because that had a impact on my opinion on this case. But just for the record, as we are the recommending body as it goes forward to the council, I feel more comfortable with not skipping over the high density limited as a consideration for the, I think it's the 45 DU per acre versus 65 DU per acre. Thanks.
And council does pay attention to the minutes and the records. Some may even be watching this. That will help them in their hearing, which will first happen on May 26th, I believe is the advertised date of when this would move forward to them. Commissioner Casano.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I will be supporting this as well. In my years of involvement with the city of Tempe, I have seen Apache go from a bed of prostitution that the city tried to correct by just enforcing and then moving into another city, and then we fall back and it would come back. And I think this area north Tempe has gone through the same thing and it's still going through the same thing. There's a transition period, and I think we need to encourage new things to go in there so that we can start to put a different face on that whole area and make it much more attractive for more development to take place and improvements in the neighborhood. So I will be supporting this.
With a motion?
I will be happy to make a motion for PL 220055 for approval.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Commissioner Amorosi.
It's been moved and seconded. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, members of the public, those who called in, staff for the thorough presentation. Mr. Pham, thank you. As we said, this is a recommendation that we've made. Council will hear this on May 26th. Staff, do we have any other announcements? Any other issues? Nope.
Chairman, no.
I would like to thank staff for the wonderful tours. I had asked way back sometime during the COVID fog of what we went through when we were meeting virtually, that someday when it was safe to do so, if we could go see some of these projects over the years that we've approved. And staff took us on 2 Fridays worth of tours that were enlightening and educational, and made me feel good about the stuff that we work on here on these Tuesday nights. So thank you, especially Suparna and Steve, if you're listening, for your remarkable driving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a joint effort, team effort. Thank you very
Yes, but
much.
that was great, and we should make that a every once in a while kind of a thing. Thank you. Anything else? All right, meeting adjourned. Go Suns.